Top stories: South Africa to closely monitor developments in Boston and a warning of heavy rain for Cape Town. Good morning, I'm Vabakshni Chetty. The South African government says it's closely monitoring developments after twin explosions at the Boston Marathon in Massachusetts in the US. 2 South African athletes have been injured in the explosions. 28 South Africans registered for the race. International Relations Department spokesperson Clayson Monyela.
We continue to monitor the situation and follow it closely, in addition to checking with hospitals and local authorities. And we shall be updating South Africans as and when we get the information.
The DA says an inquiry by Parliament into the meat labelling scandal will holistically investigate the entire supply chain for meat products and a lack of oversight by Parliament. DA spokesperson on Agriculture, Annette Steyn, says she will submit a motion to the National Assembly calling for the establishment of an ad hoc committee to probe the meat label scandal. Steyn elaborates.
We will request that the ad hoc committee institute a parliamentary inquiry on the meat label scandal that could subpoena all the retailers, abattoirs and other agencies indicated in this scandal. This parliamentary inquiry will allow Parliament to holistically investigate the entire supply chain for meat products in South Africa and assesses where oversight and accountability is lacking. The inquiry could also help to define the scope and mandate of the interventions required by the Single Food Agency proposed in Parliament earlier this year.
Finance Minister Pravin Gordhan says South Africa remains in an intriguing position to investors internationally and as an important facilitator for investment throughout Africa. He was addressing prospective investors at a roundtable at the Council on Foreign Relations in New York. Sherwin Bryce Pease reports.
Gordhan touted the National Development Plan, which he said hoped to eradicate the legacy of apartheid and begins to create a more equitable society. He fielded questions on South Africa's slow growth rate and high youth unemployment and admitted that labour concerns and continued pressure from Europe had hurt South Africa's growth prospects. He said the country would remain the largest economy in Africa with the best financial infrastructure for the foreseeable future, but welcomed increased competition from other countries. He's in the United States to promote investment and attend the annual meetings of the IMF and World Bank later this week. Sherwin Bryce Pease, SABC News, New York.
Efforts to improve frosty diplomatic relations between South Africa and Nigeria are expected to be bolstered when President Jacob Zuma holds high-level private talks with his Nigerian counterpart Goodluck Jonathan in the capital Abuja. Diplomatic relations between South Africa and Nigeria took a huge knock after the deportation of 125 Nigerians who had arrived at the OR Tambo International Airport in March last year. The mass deportation was a result of claims by South African immigration officials that Nigerian nationals carried fake yellow fever vaccination documents. The action angered the Nigerian government, which in turn then reciprocated by turning back 78 South African business executives from Nigeria. President Jacob Zuma says he will use today's meeting with his host, Jonathan, to thrash out some of the pressing issues that have sparked hostility between the two governments.
We are also of the view, not only in government, including business people, including Nigerians and South Africans, that these two economies ought to do better in terms of working together as two big economies that could help Africa in terms of the economic development. And I'm sure some of the discussions we'll be having would be, in a sense, looking at those kind of questions. What else could we do to help deal with the issue of the perception, which is just a perception, because we have good relations with Nigeria.
The Weather Service has issued warnings of heavy rain and gale force winds for a large part of the Western Cape's coastal areas over the next 2 days. Cape Townians can expect showers from this afternoon already, with heavy rain of about 50 millimeters tomorrow. Spokesperson for the City of Cape Town's Disaster Risk Management Centre, Wilfred Solomons Johannes, says they are ready for any eventuality.
The City of Cape Town Disaster Management Authority has placed all our disaster response teams on high alert, and we appeal to Cape Townians to exercise caution. In particular, motorists are appealed to slow down on our roadways. Dress warmly if you go outside to protect yourself against the cold. And then an appeal is made, in particular, those living in informal settlements and backyards, to keep a watchful eye on open flames and extinguish them before going to bed.
Recapping the top story, the South African government says it's closely monitoring developments after twin explosions at the Boston Marathon in Massachusetts in the US. 2 South African athletes have been injured in the explosions. SAFM News, I'm Vabakshini Chetty.